chat. So let's do start off with just some introductions. As Dan is our honoured guest, if we could start with Dan. So if you could just explain who you are, where you're from, a little bit about your background and what Scandinavian House is, and then I'll ask David and then Dave as the final one.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm Dan. I'm managing director of Scandinavian House, and we're a business-to-business wholesale distribution company that majors on kids' beds. We service retailers up and down the country, from people like Dreams, who are probably our biggest account, to smaller independent and also online retailers. So we've got quite a mixed bag of customer, but uniquely what we do for them is they don't touch any of their product that they're selling is we deliver that to the end consumer, and do a home delivery service along with an assembly service as required. So we're specialists in the furniture sector, only concentrating on kids' beds, and we've been doing it for 24 years now, so some time, amazing. And we only deal with European suppliers. So our factories that we've got close relationships with are in Estonia, Denmark, France, and Spain. So we haven't bought anything else in from out of those areas because we've got a good product mix within those customer base, and the supply time is also very good for us. So that's a little bit about Scandinavian House.
Perfect. Thank you very much, David.
Yeah, hiya. So I am one of the product managers at Brightpearl. I've worked here a little over 6 years, and for most of that time as a product manager, I've looked after the bits of the system that are to do with either inventory, warehouses, logistics, that kind of thing, or the catalog, so the products and the prices. And for anyone who's listening who's not too familiar with Brightpearl, I'd introduce it like Brightpearl by Sage is a retail operating system that we built really for the retail and wholesale sectors. So we provide multi-channel merchants with the freedom and the flexibility to sort of grow fearlessly. That's the tagline that we use. But what it means in real terms is that we deploy rapidly. We've got loads of integrations to all sorts of like e-commerce providers in all different sort of verticals. So logistics, product management, analytics, marketplaces, there are tons of them out there. And kind of what it means is that a retailer or a wholesaler can use Brightpearl as a hub at the center of the tech stack that's built for the industry and is kind of optimized for the needs of their own business. That's us.
Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, Dave Pickburn.
Thank you, Paul. I'm Dave Pickburn. I'm the managing director of StreamTech, who provide the Stream product, and was the founder of that business and of the product alongside many of my colleagues. I've got a long history in building and deploying transport and logistics solutions, going back much too long, and Stream came out of that, purely cloud-based SaaS product aimed at anybody who's got their own fleet of vehicles, making their own deliveries, and designed to integrate and work with products, particularly like Brightpearl. That's a really good fit. Worked together with Dan for a number of years on the Stream product and on that integration with Brightpearl, which is the tightest integration of all the products that we deal with.
Fantastic. And if David, if at any point you want to understand the story behind the birth of Stream, then it involves a pub in Otley with Dave and Dan. So, but that's for another time. So if we go into the discussion questions, and then feel free to kind of put in and have your penneth as we go along. I have got some little prompts and so forth. So if the conversation stays, then hopefully I can prompt that a little bit more. So first off, and this is probably really aimed primarily at Dan to start off the conversation, if that's all right, with kind of what are the benefits of managing that wholesale and distribution operation of yours in-house rather than outsourcing some of the elements of it?
Yeah. So our current operation is multi-warehouse. We have 2 warehouses. So having a system that enables us to track stock and integrate orders into the system to be able to then home deliver them through 2 warehouses, bearing in mind that the industry classes our products being long, bulky, heavy items as ugly freight. It gives us full control of our inventory, of our orders, by doing everything in-house. We've learned, if you like, the hard way by trying. When we first started, we've got 24 years of experience with this. So trying to do with a parcel carrier is a disaster because of the level of returns. There are a couple of reasonable 2-man delivery options out there, but they're absolutely stacked with work, and that's that causes its own problems as well. So giving ourselves full control of the whole jigsaw, if you like, it has made a huge difference to our business. It's the system that we've got currently is absolutely ideal to our needs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And David, with the rest of the kind of the Brightpearl customer base, is this? I'm not just talking about own fleet deliveries here, but in terms of the warehousing and all the other elements that kind of make up a distribution operation. Is it common for them to do it in-house, or are quite a lot of businesses outsourcing elements of that operation?
I'd say there's a real mix, and it really depends on the industry that people are operating in. So if there's anyone who's just working with packets and that size of thing, direct to consumer, there's no reason really to take control of that. I think where people want to bring it in-house is more when they need to own the brand. So you want your own stamp on it, you need to take it right through to the end of the process. Any part of the retail operations can be outsourced, but you want to have people who are knowledgeable, who are trained up to the level of service that you expect. Again, with a packet delivery, it's not that big a deal, but when you've got people going into someone's home, bringing stuff to the point that it's intended to be used, even assembling it, like providing a service well after the time of the sale, then yeah, I think it can be quite important to maintain ownership of that brand.
And there's a quite commonality there, isn't there, Dan, in terms of a longer lead time between the point of ordering and that point of actually fulfilling it and assembling it. It's not, it's not next day, same day type things, or typically it's not. There's a longer lead time in there.
Yeah, I think we're everything is expected next day, with the exception of bigger items. I think you wouldn't expect a dining suite, a sofa to be delivered next day because you don't think it's being made personally for you, which a lot of people still have that misnomer that they think their product is specific for them. And at the same time, especially in our environment, it's a considered purchase because the room will be getting decorated. There'll be carpet going down. It's a new makeover for a whole room. So the lead time is important. It is decreasing as we go forward, but there's an exception that having the level of service that we offer, particularly with assembly, isn't a next day option. We can't cover the country nationwide next day with a delivery and assembly service. You can send a parcel. If our boxes were all 6 inches square, it'd be fantastic. We wouldn't. It'd be a different business altogether. But sadly, it's ugly freight, and it takes a little bit more of planning.
Indeed. Okay, Dave. In terms of, we'll focus on the delivery element and managing that, particularly that order to delivery process. It's not uncommon, particularly for us, why people are kind of coming to us.
Yeah, I mean, when you delivering quite a complex product, because there's not just one element being delivered. Each product being delivered, if it's a children's bed, might have several components, all of which you've got to manage the stock for, You've got to marshal that stock into the right location. Dan mentioned earlier, you've got multiple warehouses. You've got to trunk it between those warehouses and keep track of that as you're doing it, and plan that delivery after it's arrived there. And at the same time, you've got a number of parties that are interested in this. You've got the Scandinavian House, the company that are owning that process of delivery. You've got the person who is at home and wanting that delivery, that's purchased the goods. They're another interested party that wants to be able to track that progress and see where their delivery is. And then you've also got, in a wholesale and distribution environment, you've got the retailer that's actually sold those goods to the end consumer and placed that order with Scandinavian House to fulfill those goods, and managing that whole process, keeping all those parties satisfied, happy, informed, not ringing you up every day, asking where it is, not complaining, is where we come in, really. And the integration we've got with Brightpearl, which goes right down to that stock level, we're informed when stock is available, updates are coming through in real time, it is critical to managing that whole process.
Okay, I just wanted to pick up on one of the points that David made about kind of customer satisfaction, and that by managing it in-house, then you've got control of that customer satisfaction. And I know it's one of those kind of, as a marketer, I always talk about this because this is what we kind of focus on quite often with the Stream product, is that it's very much about customer service and customer satisfaction. Is that kind of something that Scandinavian House has been able to use for you to grow your business, Dan, in terms of being able to say, well, we have this, and this enables us to provide a stellar kind of delivery service throughout?
Massively, Paul. Our biggest customer, Dreams, as an example, rely on us as their kind of number one junior bedroom supplier, which is great. But we've built on that business because of the whole package. It's not just about the product; it's about the level of service that we can offer. And they've got a customer service team who trust and believe in what we offer. So if you go back 15 years where everything was on paper and it was all quite chaotic, there's absolutely no trust at all. And where's my delivery? Where's my driver? Those are all the questions that we've endured for years. And then now we don't get a phone call. And if we do get a phone call after looking at Stream, they've got complete and trust and transparency in the whole order process. So it's enabled customer services to tell the buyers, listen, these guys are great. Everything that we do, it's there on the button. They trust us. It's a huge amount of trust. Therefore, they always say in their business, if there's no noise, it's great news. So if the buyers say there's no noise, we're really happy with you. We don't ever get patted on the back to say, well done, guys. It's there's no noise. And the buyers say there's never any noise with Scandinavian House. And therefore, why don't we look at this, or why don't we look at more? So of course, that's given us the opportunity to say, well, let's build on what we're already offering. And now we represent 90% of the kids' bed offer in Dreams, whereas before, it was half.
Okay.
Can I just pick up on a couple of those things as well? Because there's a couple of things. We also like to be seen as a quiet supplier. Quiet supplier, I think, is a really good term, and I think Brightpearl, to some extent, are a quiet partner as well. We don't have much problems with the integration. It just runs. That's not true of the integrations that are only capable of being delivered via CSV and things like that. So that's one thing. The other thing, Dan, I remember a statistic, ages ago, like 9 years ago, where your phone bill dropped by 60%.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
and it's like a weird statistic. You think what's that to do with software? But your phone bill dropped by 60% because mostly people stopped ringing you, but when they did ring, you could answer when they rung. I mean, is that?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think even going further from that, I think we had at that time 4 lines into the business and I know that they're all IP lines now, but basically 4 open lines into the business to be able to speak to customer service. We've got 2 now, and the phone is still not ringing. So it's kind of we haven't got the traffic coming into the to the office, to the front house as we call it, because a lot of the information is already provided for our customers who now trust in that system. And it's taken a couple of years initially just to get them kind of on board, and I can see the challenge we've got in the future is the bigger players will want to go to one place. So that's probably going to be a challenge down the line. But for the vast majority of our existing customers, it's just working so nice so that we don't have the noise that we used to have. And let's never ever go back there.
and again, like Brightpearl and the better suppliers in the market, can I put it like that? You have to build and evolve and grow your offering, just as you do. We have to do that. Brightpearl has to do that to fit with a changing world, because the world does keep changing. And if that's an integration to a centralized system to give them those updates, that's the kind of thing that we're up for.
And I think that kind of we're going off script here, but that's great.
Sorry, Paul.
No, that's absolutely fine, because I'm glad we are. It's interesting because we talked about the Stream Brightpearl integration. It's been there for around about 8 years, something like that. I saw you raise your eyebrows, David, when we said that, because it's a long time. And Dan asked the question. He couldn't remember what life was like. It's like me trying to remember what it's like before I had kids, what my life was like, as I've spoken to Dave about many times before. But in terms of how you've evolved in the last, you've been with the business sort of 6.5 years. How has Brightpearl? I know it's been acquired inventory planner, and then it's been acquired itself by Sage. How have you felt that Brightpearl as Stream has adapted? How's Brightpearl adapted to the marketplace, and what businesses like Dan's wholesalers and distributors are demanding or asking for?
Yeah, it's a tricky question to answer, because I think there are a lot of people that use Brightpearl for slightly different things, and it's been pulled in. We've had different needs that we've needed to meet over that time. I don't feel like there's one straight answer. And obviously within that time we've had like the pandemic, and I know it comes up on every discussion like this, but it's such a big thing and has impacted all our industries like in such a big way that it's kind of hard to ignore it. I feel like off the back of that time, we kind of saw patterns in how people were using the system and kind of the other systems that they were integrating to as well. But it kind of harks back to the thing you were saying a second ago, that you do need to be able to change and adapt as you grow. It's really important. It became even more important for Brightpearl to facilitate that through that time, and to make sure that we were, even if we couldn't meet the customer's needs in the core platform, that we have like an integration or an app that you can then get hold of that would facilitate that for you. There are a lot of different kind of phrases that have been kicking around over the past couple of years, like adaptive retail, unified commerce, omnichannel a couple of years ago, but they're all kind of referring to a similar set of values in that you kind of need to be able to handle unpredictability. You need to be able to set up to adapt quickly and to take ownership, no matter how it is that you're reaching your customer base. In that sense, we've found that like making sure that you have standardized ways of integrating to things and offering people a lot of, so something that we definitely saw was that being able to automate parts of your process offers up a level of consistency that you can give people across these different routes into their market. So suddenly adding in a new sales channel doesn't mean that you have to figure out every little detail of how that works, because you know your business and you know the people who are going to be consuming your product. Ultimately, you can kind of handle like 80% of those cases just through being able to automate things and understand the state that an order needs to be in. And then you can start to focus on the exceptions, like the outliers. you start to look at a business can start to look at how they look after those exceptions, what they need to do about it, and free up resource to make sure that they're actually investing their time and efforts into things that are valuable to their business, times when human intervention is valuable. So yeah, going back to your question, how has it changed for Brightpearl? It's just that adaptability and that ability the ability of our system to accommodate the need to adapt that has just become more important than ever.
Mm-hmm. Going back to dreams and scaling from 50% of their business to 90% of their business. And I know that you've kind of added in extra channels into your operation. Is that on the back of this kind of everything, because you're able to offer us a better customer service, then that leads to extra business, and then you're looking to exploit extra channels in the way that you do things?
Yeah, we go to, for example, the furniture show in January, and again we show a selection of product, but we're not just selling the product; we're selling the whole turnkey package of the whole. It's DHD, it's music to a buyer's ears when we can offer DHD. They have no inventory issues. It's all on us. We can also offer an assembly service. So then, we're listening to what they offer. So if they're, it's very much, we can deal with. We don't sell direct, so we're not a retailer. We're only still looking at wholesale. We've made that decision. That may change in the future. Who knows? But currently, we're happy with the customer base we've got. But we can adapt. There's nobody who can turn up at the furniture who we couldn't deal with. Whether it'll be a designer who wants one bed every year or every 6 months to a large multiple, because being able to offer the service we do. It's kind of there's no minimum order. All the parameters or barriers have been removed by having the system and the setup we have, so we can deal with really, really small customer or a massive customer, and it's all using the same system. So but what we're not looking at is channels of direct sales currently. So that's an area that we may look at in the future, but currently are steering clear of that.
Yeah, and I know that couple of the points that David made there will probably be music to Dave's ear, because the number of times he talked to me about integrations and that moving data seamlessly between applications. I will hand over to the meister of the integration, that data transfer, in terms of some of the diagrams that Dave puts together bamboozle the hell out of me, but that's absolutely fine.
It's interesting. We spend a lot of time integrating with systems, but what we love is when someone comes along and says, I already have Brightpearl, or I'm thinking about what system I should use, and we've got an integration that's ready to roll out within a few hours. We can get that up and running, get the inventory moving between the two, get the orders moving between the two, get the status updates flowing back. It's great. Whereas, of course, when you start with a brand new integration, you've got the analysis to do, you've got the work to do, and it takes time, effort, money to do that. So there's a significant time and cost saving when you've got that all pre-built and that depth of integration. But it's not just Brightpearl, to be fair. And it's not just Brightpearl and Stream. We all sit at the center of not the center necessarily. We all sit as part of an ecosystem of products. Whether that be Google Maps, whether that be as part of our solution. The SMS messages and the gateways to that we can trigger off. The underlying analytics that we can build that data up, and then you can use Power BI if you want, or Looker Studio, or whichever tools but we all build up into a set of tools that we use. It's not none of us I don't think try to offer a tool set that we claim to be. That's all you'll need for your business. Because you remember back in the day, people used to come around and say, we've got the one-stop shop that will offer your IT solution for the whole business. I don't think anyone tries or pretends that that's the case. We all sit in an ecosystem, and it's building that ecosystem and building those integrations. So you're not rekeying data, you're not exporting spreadsheets and importing spreadsheets. You've got it properly integrated. That makes a big difference. And that, like I say, when you've done it, and then you can kind of roll that out and switch that on for new business as it comes along. It's kind of it's a win-win-win for Brightpearl, for us, and for whoever we're doing business with. They can get up and running reliably and quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else Dan might have connected with Brightpearl, but you know, I'm sure, David, you look at some quite complex ecosystems with some of the Brightpearl customers where it obviously, if they're delivering in their own vehicles, then hopefully they're using Stream, but we're not the only ones. I mean, I think we talked earlier about all the fulfillments with own vehicles for Dan's business, but others might have a proportion where they're doing their own vehicles because it's the big ugly freight stuff. But then there's some elements that they might be using the likes of UPS or DHL, or you know, because that's just, they're the 6-inch boxes and they can ship it and it's easier to do that. And then there's accounting in there, there's this, that, and the other, there's inventory planner, there's so forth. So, you know, in terms of that ecosystem, how important is that for you for Brightpearl itself?
It's like that whole ecosystem is incredibly important. So I last year I bought a new bed, had it delivered, and it was a really good experience. So they communicated really well with me. I'd chosen to have it assembled. They sent me clear instructions about how I should prepare the space. They sent me over a 1-hour time slot without me asking for it, but they offered me the option to reschedule it if I needed to. Which already in my head, I was thinking, okay, like obviously working for the company that I do, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see about 3-4 apps that would need to sit in that chain of events. And then when they actually came out, it was an in-house delivery service. They arrived on time, or at least within the time frame. They assembled the bed. There were no issues. They actually took some pictures of it. And well, there was one small issue, but it wasn't a big deal. They took a picture of it, and then they asked me to sign it off. Before they left the house, I got a confirmation email on my phone with the pictures, with my signature on it. And again, I was thinking, oh, all that ecosystem that took place there, like everything that had to feed through, like really seamlessly, stay completely up to date. Excellent stuff. I mean, Dan, you said earlier about the lead time thing. The expectation of lead times is coming down, and yet it's still important. People still want to feel that you can respond quickly as someone selling that stuff. Having that tight integration between things, understanding when you are going to be free, and being able to respond to any gaps in that schedule, or have the right inventory at the right time. Again, and Paul, you mentioned inventory planner a couple of times. Mm-hmm. This is an app that Brightpearl, that's part of our offering, that's really all about making sure that you have the right inventory at the right time. It analyzes past sales and it makes purchasing recommendations, because as retailers, people don't want their money tied up in stocks out on shelves or in outstanding purchase orders with their suppliers when they could be selling that stuff. All of these things tie together really closely, and if you get it just right, then you can deliver a really powerful solution and really impress your customers, like in the way that I was impressed with that delivery experience that I talked about. All of those apps played a part in that, and getting that to me quickly at the right time and giving me the feedback that I needed before the interaction was even over. It's really important.
What I want to know now was that Stream?
You know, I've watched myself. Yeah, it could relevant.
Everything you've described is part of the service that Scandinavian House offer, and that is enabled through Stream in particular, because that's the bit you see, and but also through the back office systems as well. I love it when either it happens to me, and sometimes deliberately, because I buy from customers if I get the chance, but sometimes accidentally as well. And colleagues and friends do it. They all say, "Oh, I've bought so and so, and it's coming via, I've got a notification saying it's on its way, and it's from Stream. And I always want to know, so what was the service like? I always want to get that feedback, and fingers crossed, thumbs held. Usually, it's pretty good.
Well, I'd just like to echo that, because that is, you described the service that's expected of us. It's not, that's just the norm. It's not, I wouldn't say that's exceptional, but I'm glad you thought it was, but it's the norm now. If it's got to be that and above that level, it's not anything less than that is actually, below par in this day and age.
Yeah. And you've got two customers really, haven't you, Dan? You've got the person, if you like, the David Sullivan that you're delivering to, but you've also got the company that David Sullivan has bought his bed from, and you're delivering, customer service on behalf of both those parties.
Yeah, and that's it's an important message we get across. So obviously within the integrations, particularly with Stream, we can send the email that you receive for notification of the booking in, but it's as if, let's say you bought it from Dreams, but it's as if we are part of the Dreams team, and it wouldn't be until you spoke to the person who was assembling it that they may be working for a different outfit altogether, but the whole experience is that we're acting in Dreams' best interest, or other customers' best interest, right until the point of being at the coalface in front of the customer, because that's the journey that they want. They want, they've got a contract with the retailer, and they're getting a delivery from, as far as they're concerned, that retailer. And as long as that experience is seamless right the way through, as you've described, David, that's what we would offer. Until the point of actually chatting to the guy who's assembling it and making him a cup of tea. Hopefully, I hope you did, by the way, because that's a feedback.
Of course, and
of course, yeah. But yeah, and again, what's really important, and that's why the control and having it all in house. The longest, I bet the guys in the house with you delivering and assembling your bed were longer than the sales experience that you had, whether you bought online or in the store. Those guys are the ones who leave a lasting message with the end customer, because that's their longest experience. You might have bought online, never seen someone, or even in the store, you might have gone on a Saturday morning or whenever. So it's really important that those guys are punctual, efficient, and polite, and tidy up, and it's that it's a whole package right to the end. But people do forget that the fitters, our fitters, can be on site for an hour and a half. They've had a longer customer experience, directly with the end customer than any of the people in the chain beforehand. And certainly with a sales rep at Dreams, it's kind of right, next one, let's get some more sales in. It's So yeah, no, what you described is what we aspire to and do week in, week out.
Well, that kind of closes that loop in terms of controlling it in-house, because you control the customer experience then. And as you just said, quite often when you're buying online, that person that comes to your door and delivers it is the only experience you have of that brand.
Yeah.
I think you talked about that at the beginning, David, in terms of that brand experience. It all kind of, I know Brightpearl talk about on the channel. It's that kind of thing about, online and marketplaces and in store and all that sort of stuff, which is absolutely fine because that's the buying experience. But it's, this is all about what happens when that's all done, the order's placed, and then what happens? What is that experience throughout that process that you're kind of handing over to somebody else?
Well, it's all part of the experience. Omnichannel and the other unified commerce, the other things that I mentioned before, people want to be able to go and see some products in store, get some pricing, maybe get a quote online, act on it in their own time. So it's really about closing the gaps between the different channels. People, even if it happens over many different channels, people want to feel like one experience all the way across the board. Mm-hmm. And you're right, Dan, in that experience, that was the first time that I dealt with anyone face to face, because I just looked something up online and bought it. And I did get a good experience out of it. I have had bad experiences, bad experiences, and I know that I've mentioned them to other people. We did some research a while back, and I think people who are dissatisfied with an experience is something like, you might tell 8 to 10 people about it. a lot more than that many positive customer experiences to make up for that. I think it's something like 12 to get reviews to offset. People say that they won't deal with a brand after, I think 9 out of 10 people wouldn't deal with a brand after a single bad experience. So it's just, and a lot of these things are just avoidable. 3/4 of these things are just to do with like operational failure a lot of the time. Sometimes it's to do with like training, and sometimes it's to do with that bad experience on site, but you know, many of those things are really avoidable. So yeah, by facilitating those people, by enabling the people that are going to have those important interactions with your customers, you're really protecting your brand. You're really like playing repeat business and customer loyalty and all of that.
I mean, the couple of things there. Communications, you know, just telling someone what's happening alleviates 90% of problems. Would you go back to whoever you bought that from if you were looking for another product in that same area? If you're looking for another bed or another piece of furniture?
Yeah, I would, but it's a very good product and it doesn't need a.
But sometimes you need another one.
I've recommended them to people because it was a good, it was a good experience. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely gone in their favor.
What is it Toyota that talk about customers for life because they want them to keep coming back, even if they're only a customer once every 4 years? You know, it's that loyalty is important.
Because we're running out of the allotted time that I'd given this. There's one more kind of, I think you, again, David, you mentioned this in terms of managing by exception. And it's one of the things that kind of, we talk about at StreamTech quite often. And I know that Dan's talked about this in the past as well. When I stood on the stand with him at the January Furniture Show or something like that, in terms of you're delivering all this stuff and it's, you only really want to, the customer service needs to work almost seamlessly, but then you can alleviate any issues by managing the ones that are falling out of, whether it's the allotted delivery time or there's a poor experience, or your analogy there, David, with your bed, there was an issue, but it was resolved whilst the guys are on site doing the assembly. And I know I kind of looping back to one of the little bits of research we did. We looked at all the deliveries and all the orders that were placed through Stream or delivered through Stream last year, and it was kind of 10% falling out of that kind of allotted delivery slot. Now, when you think about it, what that means is that the companies are only dealing with 10% of their deliveries, their operation that they need to do anything about necessarily. And the 90% are kind of working seamlessly through, and you can make sure that you solve the problems there and then.
And you've got to be careful with data, Paul. You've got to be always.
I've not heard that phrase before, Dave. Never heard that uttered from your mouth.
Okay. All I'm saying is the ones that not. It depends on the style of business and what you're delivering as to whether that delivery window is an important thing or whether it's an all-day thing. And the ones that are pursuing that deliver within a time slot, the figure is kind of sub 5% in terms of late deliveries, I think. Yeah, and I know Scandinavian House do well on it.
They do indeed.
Yeah, but we give ourselves, our planners know that we try and if we've got an hour or 2 hour slot, but the planning will be at the beginning of that window. So if there's any slippage due to traffic on the road, and we're pretty accurate on the time for bills and deliveries, we're always at front end. So being within the zone shouldn't actually be a problem. We may end up extending the stay, but it is important. I think that David mentioned Dave mentioned this earlier. The most important thing is that initial contact with the customer, because as soon as you've contacted the customer in the very first instance, they know that they're in the pipeline. There's a process that they're being looked after. They can acknowledge the offer times that we're being given. That removes all the noise, because we know after that it will just happen, and the customer experience from our point of view is more likely has there been an issue in terms of was there a misdrilling on a bed, which is rare, luckily. It's those kind of issues. I can't think of many circumstances where a customer is getting flustered because we are half an hour early or half an hour late within a slot that they want. It's more about, as David said, and your overwhelmingly good experience, you had one small issue that got resolved quickly, and that's what we were trying to do, because we're there, we're taking the photographs of the assembled bed. If there's a shake or a knot that customer's unhappy with, already we're sending a replacement part to replace it, and it's, oh, fantastic, that's great, I didn't expect that. That's kind of the next level. I think the time, the window of time is not as crucial as, you know, in our experience with our business.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot that plays into it. I mean, the photograph as the evidence of the issue and having that all feed around really quickly, that was a good example of something that worked really well. But I mean, that technology didn't always exist. When you well, basically, to tie it back to the managing by exception thing, and I'm relying on some data that we got out of Brightpearl, because we've got this automation engine, like to make it accessible to people so that they can set it up easily and build on what they automate is really important. It saves people a lot of time. It can really reduce your running costs as your operational costs, and it keeps human error down. So what that means in practice is 9 out of 10 things will progress without issue. You are free to concentrate on those 10% of outliers. And when you concentrate on those, hopefully you're not just mopping up after them, but you can start to say, okay, well, what we can do about these. Actually, there are the same outliers, maybe 1 times 10. Like, okay, 100 of deliveries, you might see a misdrilling or something like that. But for each of those, there's got to be a best way of handling it. And then you start to automate on those, which is why it's really important to make that automation accessible and quickly, something that you can quickly implement. So maybe the photos didn't always happen, but that is something that you can then turn around and say, like, okay, here's how we can resolve this. Here's how we can get that customer back on side, because we've got a way of handling this and we've got a way of communicating it to them well. Delivery windows, again, I've had deliveries turn up extremely late, but they told me it was going to be late and it wasn't as big an issue. If you take ownership of that exception and you put your brand stamp on it and you work with those people, then yeah, you can turn it around and really make it into a win in the eyes of that customer.
Yeah, communication, like you say.
Yeah, I think the other thing to bear in mind is we're taking a lot for granted here in a good way, in terms of, you know, all the orders that come in, and I know Dan uses EDI to bring things into Brightpearl, orders into Brightpearl, and the manual entry, and I'm not sure of the whole process in truth, but those orders go in and they're all validated correctly, and they all flow through to Stream with the right address and the right products. And when stock's available, it really is available, and when stock's not available, it's really not available. And yeah, there's a lot of good process flows going on, just happening and just working without a great deal of effort.
Yeah.
Jolly good. Well, I think we've kind of exhausted the time on this bit, and I only asked the first question and the rest of it's flowed out of that, which is really good. But thank you very much for that. I think we're done. I'd like to thank you, Dan and David in particular, and thanks, Dave.
Well, thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah,
It's been great.
Echo that. Thank you to all three of you, Paul, Dan, and David.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. All right.
Super. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.